All right, welcome back. For you, you had to wait all weekend. For me, I turned the camera back on. I didn't want to forget where I was at, and I figured this is the best way to go ahead and do it. So here we go. Hi everyone, Britta here. If this is your first time here, I'm a transformational life coach. And it's my goal for this channel to help you overcome the obstacles that are standing in the way of you living your best and most authentic life. Today in this video, this is actually part 2 of a possibly 3-part series. In this video, I'm going to be picking up where I left off in part 1. I highly recommend for you to watch part 1 first, but let's be honest, it's not entirely necessary. But it does give you some idea of how we got to where we are now. I'll put an info card up above. Again, you can click that if you want to watch part 1 first. If not, let's continue. Right after my mom and my brother died, it created a desire for me to start asking questions. Where do we go when we die? Do we go anywhere? Is there a God? What is God? Do I even want anything to do with God? And I did not make any decision right then and there. It merely planted a seed to even be willing to start looking. Almost exactly a year later, my brother-in-law was in a car accident with his girlfriend. We had just met her that evening for the first time. And it was a huge shock. He was 18 or 19 at the time, and she was the same age. Very young, very sudden, totally unexpected, just devastated the community. Small, rural town in the South. You can understand the impact that that had. I remember just sobbing, and I called my stepdad. He consoled me, and he said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because I'm sad." And he reminded me, I will see them again someday. And he said, "If you want to say something, just say it. They'll hear you." And I didn't do it just yet. I don't know what to say. What do you say? Come back? Go into the light? I don't know. So I sat with it for a little bit. And everyone was gathering at my mother-in-law's house. And I went to the grocery store to just get something. I don't even remember what now. I remember being in my car and I was driving and it was just me in the car. And I spoke to his girlfriend and I said, "What do you want me to say to your family?" Now, I knew I was never going to meet her family. I didn't even know her last name. I'm sure I would have found out soon, but it was pointless because I did know that the funerals were on the same day at the same time. And furthermore, the viewings were also on the same days at the same time across town. There was no way that I could be in both places before one or the other was over. And of course, my place was with my family and my in-laws for my brother-in-law. I knew I was not ever going to be able to meet her family. But still I asked, and I said, "What do you want me to tell them?" And it was not audible like a voice. I got a thought in my head that said, "Tell them I love them and I'm okay." And I thought for a moment, and I said, "I would want to tell my family that as well. So how will they know that this is you and not me just making this up in my mind?" And then I got this really overwhelming feeling that I struggled to name, and I called it brotherly love. I knew it wasn't right. I knew brotherly love was not the right term, but that I couldn't call it anything else. The more I thought about it, it was just brotherly love. It made no sense to me. How will they know that it's you? Brotherly love. I don't know. So I started asking, did she have any brothers? Did she have any sisters? Was she an only child? And everybody I spoke to said that they thought she was an only child. And I thought the same thing. I didn't necessarily have a reason to think that, but I thought she was an only child. And everybody that I spoke to also believed that she was an only child. So it made even less sense, but I couldn't let it go. And the next day, my mother-in-law called me and she said, hey, we're going over to the funeral home to pay our respects. Nobody's gonna be there, but do you wanna come? And I'd shared with her what I had received and experienced. And so she knew. I was like, yes, I need to go. I have to go. I didn't know why I had to go, but I had to go. I had just this drive inside me, this insatiable drive. I have to go, if for nothing else than just for myself, to prove to myself that it was all in my head. So we get to the funeral home and there's a couple of her coworkers there and just very, very few people at the funeral home. And who is there? Her mom. I had an opportunity to share. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? Oh, I don't know this woman from Adam. What if she starts crying? What if she starts screaming at me? What if she says, who are you and why would you do this? Why would you say this? How cruel are you to come to me with my daughter in front of me in an open casket and tell me this? I didn't know if she would hit me. I had no idea what to expect. And it was, the best thing I can describe is, it was like the Matrix. I had a red pill and I had a blue pill. And I had to choose. And I knew that there was grace in whatever decision I chose. Whether I chose to tell her mom or whether I chose to keep it to myself and walk away for the rest of my life. Somehow I knew if I kept it to myself and I walked away, I would always wonder what if, but eventually that memory would be buried. And that would be that. And I would live on the rest of my life. And I also knew if I listened to whatever was telling me to tell her mother, that would open a door that I could then see where it went and follow the rabbit hole. I paced around. It was probably for 5 minutes, but it felt like 5 hours. I was in agony. I was in physical pain. My throat felt like it was closing up, like I couldn't breathe. That was my throat chakra. I was closing it. My stomach was in knots. I felt like I was going to throw up. That is stress. I was so nervous. And finally, I pushed myself to go up to her mother. And y'all, I probably looked like the most bumbling idiot ever, but I highly doubt she noticed because she just lost her freaking daughter, okay? I am standing in front of her and I said, can I tell you something about, and I'm not going to name her name just out of respect for the family. And she said yes. And I took a deep breath and I explained the whole situation, how I'd never experienced anything like this before, how I talked to my stepdad and he reminded me that they're not gone, and how he told me to still try to talk to them, and what I said in the car and what I received back and how I questioned it and then the answer. And then I just stood there and she looked at me, and then a man came up behind her with really protective body language, like arms crossed, chest kind of bowed out, just really like, who is this person? Really protective of her mother. And she looked at him and she looked at me, and he looked at her and he looked at me, and she looked at him again, and then she looked at me, and she still hasn't said anything about what I said. And I am dying inside, guys. I am standing here in front of them at their mercy, no clue what's about to happen. Am I about to get hit? Am I gonna get yelled at? Am I gonna get kicked out? Is she gonna start crying? Did I just traumatize this poor mother who just lost her child? I don't know. Please say something. She looks at me and she says, will you tell him what you just told me? Y'all, inside, I fell to my knees. Externally, I don't even know what the look on my face was. But inside, I was like, are you kidding me? She still hasn't said anything, okay? She still hasn't reacted, but she said, will you please tell him what you just told me? I go into the story again and I explain how this has never happened before, and my stepdad and driving and asking the question and what I got back and the response and how it doesn't make sense because I think she's the only child and I don't know. And then, y'all, he looked at her. She looked at him. She looked at me. She looked back at him. He looked at me. He looked back at her. Then they both look at me. And finally, she speaks. And she said, this is one of her brothers. She had several brothers. And beyond that, she was the only female in this generation. So the reason that everybody thought that she was an only child is because subconsciously we all picked up on mannerisms that are very much like an only child would have, because she received a lot of attention for being the only female in her family and in her generation. And then beyond that, she was extremely close with her brothers and extremely close with her cousins. And the feeling that I got, that I could only describe as brotherly love, I learned in that moment meant the intense love and connection she had with her brothers. And her mom thanked me and told me that she begged God for somebody to tell her something. I knew from then. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know if it was going to be more of that. I was so grateful that I had listened and that I said something. And then I prayed to never have to do that again. I'm at the point now where I don't care. I will. But that was very traumatic for me. And what it did, although I thought I wanted the knowledge, and it's not to say I didn't. So again, let's go back to the Matrix. So Neo has taken the pill and he wakes up in the Matrix. He does not wake up to a beautiful world of all knowledge in one moment. He wakes up in a prison of sorts. He wakes up in a terrifying wasteland with putrid gook all over him, pulling this thing out of his throat and needing to remove something from his brainstem. If that is not traumatic, I don't know what is. And that is kind of what it felt like for me. Yes, I took a brave leap. Yes, I went outside of my comfort zone. Yes, I listened to the voice that was inside of me. Yes, I helped a mother get closure from her daughter's death. And that was beautiful. But remember, I also came from a religious background. Everything I knew said that that was blasphemous. As beautiful as it was, as freeing as it was, as exhilarating as it was, I had belief systems that told me it was demonic, or it was witchcraft. It was wrong. And I had to start questioning what is real and what is not. And where does God fit in this? Where does Jesus fit in this? Where does religion fit in this? And where do I fit in this? And it felt like the earth crumbled beneath me, and I had no foundation of beliefs anymore. All of the foundation of what I thought was true, what I thought was real, what I thought was actual, crumbled beneath me. And I was so afraid of anything supernatural that I wanted nothing to do with it. That included God, because whether you're religious or not, the idea of God is extremely supernatural. I wanted nothing to do with any of it. I just wanted to live my life. I wanted to raise my babies. I wanted to be married. I knew things weren't going well, but I just wanted to focus on my life and forget any of this was happening. And that will bring us into the third video. I will leave you with this. Things are not what they seem, and we create our realities. If I'm in a place of fear and I'm experiencing supernatural things for the first time in my life, which if you watched the first video, you know it's not. But at this time, I didn't know that. I didn't remember that. I thought at 20 years old, that this was the first time I've ever experienced anything supernatural. What do you think happened next? Comment below. I'm excited to share the next chapter with you guys. And also, if this is your first time here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you want to hear more, hit that bell notification as well, so that you never miss out on a future video. I'm enjoying sharing my stories with you guys. Stay tuned for the next part.